by the second day, they're popping and running and playing. It's so yeah. Oh yeah. Some of those have 2 or 3 days off. They just out. And they'll get running. They'll be like dogs. Yeah. Uh-huh. They are so fun.
Yeah, we're ready. Oh, hot mic. So good morning. Thanks for being here this morning. We are just make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on next week as we get started. We will have, we won't have Bible class next week. We'll have worship in here at 10 o'clock. And just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So this will be our last of our December testimonies for this year. And James and Chantel Long are with us this morning, and we're going to talk about their story a little bit. I want to pray over you guys, and then we'll get started, okay? Would you bow with me, please? Father, thank you for this time that we get to spend together. Father, we love James and Chantel, and we're thankful that you have brought them together. We're thankful for the way that you continue to work in their lives and work through them and help them to model Jesus for us and for others that they come in contact with. I pray that you continue to bless them in their marriage, continue to bless them as they grow together as a couple. And Father, I pray that you will be with them this morning as they tell their story. It's in your Son's name I pray. Amen. So, tell us how you met originally. Originally, it's a unique story. So tell us how you met originally, and we'll go from there.
Before I start, I wanted to say Chantel was talking about being really nervous about being up here, and I'm not a public speaker. I don't like being in front of crowds, but for some reason, this is not bothering me at all. I'm not nervous.
Nice.
So I don't know.
We can work on that.
It's weird. If y'all want to make me more nervous,
I just wanted to say I was actually more nervous about how much I will cry than how much of the words I'm going to say. So the crying part was what made me nervous.
So Chantel and I are from Tishomingo County. I live not in a city. Yeah, Mississippi. I live like out in a rural area of the county, closest to the town of Tishomingo, and she is from Iuka. So the Tishomingo church there and the Iuka church there, where I went and she went, and it's so small that they do a lot of youth activities together in the area, and that's probably how we the first time we ever met, but I don't even remember the first time I ever met her. I was telling her last night the first memory that I have of her is when we were in high school together, and we were both in the band, and I remember seeing her in the band hall, and it's not like I didn't know who she was. Like, I already knew, hey, that's Chantel, and I don't remember meeting her before that. So, I mean, we were young the very first time that we ever interacted, and we went to Camp Maywood together in the summers, and I don't remember seeing her there. It's just like, you know,
He had a girlfriend.
a whole bunch of a whole bunch of kids from the same area that I knew all of them somehow, and that's how we originally met as kids. Did you want to add anything to that?
He had a girlfriend, but I had a crush on him. But of course, I thought he didn't know that I had a crush on him.
Yeah, that was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you two reconnect then in 2020? Get as detailed as you want to be here.
Right.
That's quite a bit of time that elapsed there. So, what would kind of tell us what you were doing in between that and how you ended up reconnecting?
Yeah, that's what I was going to start with. So, after high school, I went to Freed for a little while. I wasn't mature enough to be in college at the time. I'd just spent all my time playing video games, and I was academically suspended from Freed twice. A huge waste of time and money. But I got a life lesson out of it. You know, I know now that I wasn't ready for it. She was there a year behind me in high school, so she was there the year after. I think it was the first time I came back from being academically suspended. She was there, and I remember seeing her in Gano.
Can I cut it?
Yeah.
I think we only saw each other a couple times in Gano because I was very social and he was in his room playing video games.
Yeah. And there's a thing I didn't tell her I was going to say, but I remember seeing her in Gano one day, and I just joke, you know, with people I know, and she's like, "James Long, I like you," and I was like, "I like me too," and then just like, so after Freed Hardeman, for me, I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and just worked regular jobs there. I ended up working at FedEx for a while, and decided that I wasn't really doing anything that I wanted to do with my life. So I went to recruiting office for the United States Marine Corps, and I joined in 2005 and was stationed in New Orleans. I lived there for a lot of years. I just moved back in 2018. So I got out in 2010, but I stayed. I was in a very long-term relationship. And between that time, like from Memphis to New Orleans and all that, like I was not a faithful Christian. I was way, way far out of how God wanted me to live. And even though I was that way, looking back at it now, I can see how some things in my life that happened were like God, taking care of me. Like I was in a very long relationship, and this person, who I'm still friends with, I don't know, it's kind of weird. We were like very mature about our relationship and everything in the breakup. But she was someone who went to church like every Sunday, and like that, I guess, kept me a little reined in from what I could have, gone completely off the rails. And around that time, I helped her raise her daughter. Like she was 10 years old whenever I met her, and she's a high school or middle school teacher now. So like it was a very long time. And it's kind of weird, like the parallels that our lives have had. Angel was 10 when Chantel got her, and the times kind of match up a little bit. The length of my relationship, the length of her former marriage, and the timeline that they happened, it's all weird. Like we went off to live our own lives, but they were kind of parallel in some of the events, which I thought was, after learning about it, years later, I thought that's kind of crazy. So I moved back to Mississippi in 2018, looked for a house, bought a house, and I'm sitting there playing video games like I always have. Oh, wait, I left out the part. I went back, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went and applied for a job doing the exact same thing that I did in the Marine Corps, working with the same people in the same unit. And they said, we can't hire you because you don't have a college degree. So I went back to college, and I graduated valedictorian. Had a little bit of self-discipline then, so if I had that when I first went to Free, my life would be totally different. So moved back, and I'm sitting at my house in Iuka that I bought and feeling like an adult finally for the first time in my life, because like the Marine Corps is not paying for my food and board, and I'm like really adulting for the first time in my 30s. And scrolling through Facebook, I don't know, probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and I see that Chantel's name is Chantel Irvin instead of Chantel Rojas, and I'm like, that's weird. Last I heard from her, she was living in Mexico, had a kid, and just being cool, living life in another country. And I messaged her, I was like, where are you living now? And she jokes
I joke that that's the pickup line.
My pickup line. Like, where are you living now? Like, that's really going to get a date from anybody that you ask that to. Yeah. Just a note, yeah. So that got us to talking, and we were talking, I guess because we had so much to catch up on, we were talking till 3 or 4 in the morning for like a week.
I'm responsible most of the time. And my summer motto is, it's my summer, I can do whatever I want to. And it was the very beginning of summer. So it felt like teenager, talking on the phone 5 or 6 hours. I would never do that in a school year. I'm like, at 10 p.m., let's go to sleep. But, in the summer, I can do whatever I want. I can stay up and talk until 3 a.m.
So we're talking one day, and she doesn't come back to Iuka very often, but she's like, would you want to go on a picnic sometime? And she
I
doesn't
didn't know.
She
He
doesn't
hates
know
the
this
sweat.
at the summer, at the time, but I hate the summertime. I get so hot, and you know, just stay in the air conditioner in the summer. It's fine. Go outside in the wintertime. But I was like, a picnic? Yeah, I could do that. But then I asked her. I was like, so is this like a date, or is this just like, you know, two people who haven't talked in 20 years meeting up and saying, hey, whatever?
I put
Which
the
is not a
pressure
thing.
on.
Which is not a thing. You know, like you're not going to drive hour and a half. Yeah,
So that's kind of
yeah. But she's not going to drive an hour and a half to a place that she doesn't like to go anymore for a picnic if it's not something. And I just wanted to make sure like we're on the same page. And we went back and forth over that for a while. She's like, "What do you want it to be?" And I'm like, "I'm just asking what your intention was. Like, just want to make sure we're on, you know, thinking the same thing." Anyway, she came down from Jackson to Iuka, and we drove around looking for a place to have a picnic in July in the stupid heat in Mississippi. And we ended up not having like the best place to have a picnic. We went by a park that she loves, and we waded in some water a little while, and she can tell you about that because she loves to go there every time we go down to Tishomingo County. But we ended up eating at a place rather than having a picnic, but we sat outside, so we still got all the sweatiness of the picnic experience, which was, you know, great. Not great, but so that was how we reconnected. She started driving down like every other weekend, and I would drive up here. So, yeah, you want to add anything to that?
The place that I took him, I'm still not aware at this point that he hates to be outside in the summer. But J.P. Coleman State Park is one of my favorite places. The creek goes over the entrance, and it's beautiful, and you can just get out and wade in it or put your chair in it and just wiggle your toes in the water for some hours, and it's the best thing ever. And so we have to go buy some sandals. This is how non-outdoorsy he is. And we are just waiting, and I'm living my best life. And there's this little half wall, and he sits on it. And so things that attract me are silliness and intelligence. And so he I guess he's done waiting. So he sits on this little half wall, and he picks off this piece of something, and he's studying it, and he goes, "Do you think this is moss or lichen?" And in my head, I was like, "Marry me now." Have you gotten to the,
We'll just
I forgot the question.
we'll just work through. Doesn't matter.
So, move forward some. I feel like how God has worked in our relationship. That's where we are now. That's where we are. Okay, good.
Well, let me say something.
Okay, go ahead.
first. So, because I hadn't been to church in probably 10 years at this point, whenever we started dating, it's something that we talked about. She, said, "Where are you going to church?" or whatever, and I was like, "Well, I'm not, and I haven't been for a very long time." And when we were talking about dating and what we were going to do, what that would look like, I just bought the house, so we were talking about, would she move back to Iuka if we stayed long term, or would I go to Jackson? And in all that, we were still doing the small group things here at Skyline. So I went to small group with her, which I think for me at that time was the perfect way to ease back into going to church, because that atmosphere the closeness was something that I had never had in a church going experience before. And it was just amazing. I don't have any other way to describe it other than I went, and because there wasn't 150 people for me to get overwhelmed by. It was a small group, and I got to know each one of them more easily. It was more comfortable for me. And then the worship together opened up, and I came here with her, and I was a little nervous about that because it's still COVID stuff and the masks and all that. And I even said to her, I'm like, I don't know, maybe we should just watch the stream instead of go. But I went because she wanted me to. And at that time, I feel like a lot of the attendance that I had was because she wanted me to, and not because it was something that I felt I wanted to do at the time, which isn't the right reason in my mind now to go, but I'm glad it happened that way because it put me to where I am now. So we came here, and you were speaking, and if I could be remembering this incorrectly, but it was the first time I'd seen you here live rather than on a screen, and you were talking about how when you grew up, it was like the atmosphere was, and it's the same atmosphere I had, where God is someone who's just waiting for you to mess up so he can send you to hell. And you're saying that's not how it is, and that's not how we should live our lives in fear, going to sleep every night wondering, did I do good enough today? And that, like, it clicked in my head like, wow, I've been thinking that my whole life too, and I shouldn't have been thinking that way because God is gracious, and if we seek forgiveness, it's there continually. So I do my best to live how I'm supposed to every day, and if I fail, God's there to pick up the slack. And I, again, am not a social person and am not somebody who does this, but I went up to you that day, and I introduced myself as Chantel's boyfriend, and I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that really touched me, like it really meant something to me. And I think about it all the time. I know I don't tell you this, but I do think about that all the time. And I think that was like the turning point for me to where I wanted to be here. And it got to where if Chantel couldn't be here, like I would be like, I want to go to Skyline. And I would go by myself. And like that's when I knew, okay, I'm not doing this just because she wants me to. I'm doing it because I want to. And like I was so thankful to be back in that position, like that place in my life, like I used to be whenever I was in high school. So.
I feel like, well, in my first marriage, my husband definitely, even though we met through a church-related thing, and his family, they're Christians, but he never had the connection that he should have had with God. And so I told James that when we were dating, and I said, you know, I want this for you, but you have to want it for yourself. And so I'm just going to pray that you, you know, that's something that you decide you want and that your heart is open to that. But you can't want it just because I want you to want it. You have to want it because that's what you want. That relationship with God is what you want for yourself. And I don't know if I said, you know, I'm not really going to mention that again. I don't want you to feel like I'm pressuring you, because I just didn't feel like that was the way to go about it. And so I just kept praying for God to use him in different ways here at Skyline, where he felt connected because he felt connected, not because I was pushing him to be. And I kept seeing ways that was just happening, not because I was trying to set it up for that to happen. And so I've been really thankful seeing his journey back to a good relationship with God because he wanted it, not because I tried to push it to be that way.
One of the things when I first came here and Four Corners happened, man, that was the first experience of that. Never having experienced anything like that was It was really awesome. And I mean, I didn't participate in that first week because not social, but there were times when you would say something that made me think this or that. You were preaching on forgiveness one weekend, and I went and spoke to Scott Gatlin, and before I even said anything, he's like, I already know this and this and this, and I'm like, okay, yeah. How did you know that's what I came over here to talk to you about, you know? So, I don't know. Things like that, since I've been here, have blown my mind, really. I don't know. I just feel like things here are the way that they should be. I know that not everything is perfect and not everyone's perfect, no. But it just seems everything fits right.
So the next question was, how has God shown his faithfulness in your lives?
Okay. All right, so how has God shown his faithfulness in my life? I feel like that's such a deep question. When our family has done mission work for a long time. We moved to Baton Rouge when I was, I guess, before elementary school, and we went to a really large congregation who had a Chinese ministry and a Spanish ministry, and my parents, I'm not even really sure exactly what attracted them to the Spanish ministry, but they were really interested in it, and I think they had free Spanish classes. They labeled everything in the house, cabinet, refrigerator, all that. Got some Spanish lessons on tape, and would try to speak Spanish to each other. And, you know, as a younger child, you know, you really just soak up a language or a new something. And so I'm like, oh, they trying to have a secret language without me? No. So, of course, I would try to learn and to guess what they were saying. My dad is a paramedic, and so they were doing some mission trips to Venezuela. And so I did my first mission trip at 9. I was so afraid of flying at that point. And it was amazing, amazing, so beautiful, amazing food, amazing people. There was a monkey at our hotel. It was so cool. So then my dad started getting involved in medical mission work, moved into Guatemala and Panama. And so I grew up doing a lot of mission trips, learning Spanish all along the way. I only took one Spanish class in high school because my Spanish teacher was new, and she was also forced to teach French. So in my class, she would say things and be like, oh, wait, that's French. Sorry, never mind. And so I'm like, just the one class. And then in college, I got my degree in graphic design, not Spanish. And I was only able to fit one Spanish class in because they were at the same time as my art classes. And so then after college, I tried to get a job in graphic design, and it just wasn't happening. And so a man who was the president of 21st Century Global Missions asked my dad, do you know of anyone who would be willing to move to Mexico and translate our lessons? It's like a small preacher training school. And he was like, yeah, my daughter. And so Skyline supported me during that time, and I moved, and I didn't even know who was picking me up from the airport. I don't know how I felt comfortable to do that. Looking back, I'm like, I was crazy. How did I, feel okay to do that? But that's what I did. I committed to a year, and then I ended up staying 3 and met my first husband at that time. We worked on his visa. We came back. The city there is like 300,000 or more people, and so we moved back to my little dinky town with one red light, and everything closes up at like 6 p.m. And he was like, what in the world? We cannot live here. So we moved to Adamsville. It's about the same size. I worked 4 years there, and he got into some stuff and got in trouble with the law, and we had to start he got in trouble with the law in Texas. So we would have to go to Texas and go to these court dates, and in the meantime, we moved to Jackson. And it resulted in him being put in prison in Texas. And thinking about that now, I feel like that's not my story. That's like some telenovela. Like, that does not happen for me. And it became this humongous secret that I couldn't tell. And it felt like this weight on my shoulders as the secret, like as it became more and more time of when the secret began, because I'm a very open person. I don't like to have secrets. I have to remember, oh yeah, that's a secret, don't tell it. So for me to have a humongous secret that like 10 people knew, it felt like this huge weight that kept getting heavier. Where are your antlers? I need to see something funny. Okay. Thank you. So he ended up getting deported after about 3 years, and I put my house up for rent, and we moved to Mexico, and started a life there. I love his family. We're very close.
They're really great people. I
Yeah,
met them. They're awesome.
we're still very close. They love James. And I taught English there. It felt, just the opposite. And things were going fine, and then they weren't. And so he said, I don't want to be married anymore. Take Angel, go back to the United States. And we came back. I lived in an Airbnb because my renters were still in my house, and I had sad memories at my house. I was like, you keep it. I'm just going to rent somewhere. And then I just felt like, what do I do? How do I restart life? And then Allison Jones. Everyone needs an Allison Jones. If you do not have an Allison Jones in your life, you need one. She is my life coach. So she said, okay, what do you need? And so we made a little list in order of what I needed and how fast it needed to happen. And so, like, okay, new vehicle, check, let's do it. Celebration, let's have a little mini celebration. Need a new job, okay, find a job. I applied at South Gibson, didn't even know the school existed. Applied and got an answer in that same day. Went to an interview, and they're like, yes, come on. And God is in all of these steps. And then Stacy said, we're moving out of our rental house. Are you interested in this house? Yes. He called me Cantrell the whole 4 years. My landlord, sweet, sweet, sweet man. My name, Chantal, is on the check. It was Cantrell all 4 years. It's okay. It's okay. I loved living there. And then finally, y'all know how we reconnected. And finally I said, I want my house back. Let's get my house back. I cried, of course, when I said, can I have my house back? James had to step in and tell her because I was crying. And in all of these steps, God just, his perfect timing.
Do you want to, you said yesterday that you wanted to mention about him wanting your name to be changed.
Oh, yes. Okay. Adrian, my first husband, when we moved back, was demanding that I take Rojas off of my Facebook last name. And I was like, no, you took everything away. I get to keep this. This is my last name. And so for over a year, he would mention, the only time he would talk to Angel, he would mention, take your last name. That's my last name. Take it off. And I'm like, no, that's mine. And it felt like this public admittance of, this has been a huge failure in my life. So when you go on Facebook, if you ever change your name, it says, as you're changing it, you cannot change it back for over 100 days or something like that. Because I thought, well, if I get too panicky, I'll just change it right back. Nope, once you change it, it's there for a while. And it just felt like it was this, I'm admitting to the public there has been a huge failure in my life. But if he had not seen that my last name was changed, he wouldn't have contacted me.
So yesterday she was saying that she can now see, looking back, that something that was so hard and that she always saw as a negative in her life, God used for positive in her life to bring us together. And that, in my life, has made me look back at some negative thing. I've had a lot of negative things, but to look at them and think, okay, well, if not for that, then I wouldn't be exactly where I'm at right now, which I firmly believe is where God wants me to be now. And if any one of those, like the not being ready for college, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't have joined the Marine Corps. I wouldn't have met this person. Like, it just wouldn't have fallen in place like it has. And it's like looking back and seeing, okay, I can see the plan now. Whenever you're going through it, you don't see it at all.
So what, do you have any prayer requests that, something going on that you might want the church to be praying over?
Yeah. We have fertility issues. I have had, which is why we were able to we adopted Angel. And so we were hoping to be able to have a baby even at 40. And that wasn't happening. And so, I said I'm close to my family in Mexico. So there was a situation where there were two, brother and sister, two children that they said, hey, would you like to adopt these children? And so we had already started this big, huge process and had a lawyer, and it ended up failing. So I'm telling some friends who are DCS workers, and they said, oh, please, there are so many children that need a home. You can adopt through foster care. So we started that in July, and we are just now finishing all of there's so many rules. Finishing all of the classes and all of that we have to finish, and we're just in those last steps of that. So
We're waiting now.
Yeah,
just
hopefully
waiting.
we'll have a placement fairly soon, and we plan to adopt through the foster care system. So I guess that's our prayer, that we are placed with the child God wants us to have and can adopt that way. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for sharing with us today. I do want to share something. I got a James story. It's one of my favorite stories. It's 9 o'clock in the morning in here. James is sitting in the back, or it's around 9-ish. We're getting, proclaiming everything, making sure everything's running right. James sitting there in the back, and he asks me if I know how to yodel. Nothing out of the ordinary, I guess. I didn't think anything about it. I laughed it off, and I said, I've never tried. So, Bible class, worship, I preach, we're done, everybody's leaving. This happened at 9, remember? I hadn't thought anything about it the rest of the time, obviously. James walks up to me after worship is over, and he says, knock, knock. And I said, who's there? And he said, little old lady. And I immediately just burst into laughter and told him, that's how you set up a joke. That right there is brilliant, my friend. So that's one of my favorite stories. That is James in a nutshell. You guys are a great couple. Great. And thank you so much for sharing with us today. James and Chantel Long. Could we give them a hand, everybody? So we will begin worship this morning at 10:05. So you've got about a 20-minute break, and we'll meet back in here for worship at 10:05. Thanks for being here this morning.